Let's take a look at how to change the rules and break them in Dorico. There are 3 dialogues that control pretty much all of the decisions Dorico makes about your music by default. They are layout options, down here or on the setup menu in setup mode, notation options, which is this other cog or also on the setup menu, or you can find it in write mode on the right menu, and engraving options, which is on the engrave menu in engrave mode. You can then use the properties panel to override your defaults whenever you need to. If you're in SE or Elements, you don't have access to notation options or engraving options, so most times you alter something, if you have the power to do that, it's going to be a one-time override in the properties panel. But particularly if you're in Pro, these 3 dialogues give you a huge amount of control about how Dorico puts stuff on the page. So why 3 dialogues? Notation options, Command-Shift-N or Control-Shift-N on Windows, handles the notation. I just covered note grouping in the last video. But for instance, if you want to control the way that cautionary accidentals are handled, that's in here. And notation options are flow specific, so if you're handling, say, a piece where one movement is very tonal and another is more out there, you may need different settings for cautionary accidentals across the different flows. For example, this is in F major, and there's a bar line here, so this natural is a cautionary. So maybe you want brackets around it, or you don't want it to appear at all. You could go through the whole score, find all the examples of these, and click them one at a time, or better, click and command-click or control-click a few of them, and then click this accidental property on, and set the drop-down to hide, or round brackets, or square brackets. But if you have Pro, it's much quicker to go into notation options, find the option, set it and apply, and it'll do all of them. Let me undo that. And just like with force duration in the last video, the biggest thing about properties is that they're an override. So if you have one set to hide the accidental, say, and then you change the notation option, this one's going to remain overridden. This is why the properties panel has both switches and drop-downs, or switches and something else. The switch tells both you and Dorico that this property is ignoring what you've set in the global dialogues. Engraving options handles the look of the music, and the stuff in here can only be manually adjusted in engrave mode. This is the big write versus engrave thing. The idea is that you get everything in write mode, and then when you're in engrave mode, you can't alter anything destructively, but you can tweak the positions and the look of things. So for example, this writ has a dotted line. Maybe you prefer a dashed line. You could, in engrave mode, grab every writ and every HL and set the line style property to dashed, and maybe change the dash length here. And you could override the line thickness, for instance, and hit Tab or Enter when you're done. But it's way quicker to fire up engraving options, which is Command-Shift-E or Control-Shift-E, and find the option you need. I guess I should be using the search at the top of the dialogue. Don't miss the advanced options, the dash length is in here. And then apply. And that'll roll out to every writ, every HL. Engraving options are project specific, so they're going to be the same across all the flows in your project and all the layouts, whether scores or parts. Layout options, which is Command-Shift-L or Control-Shift-L on Windows, deals with things that are layout specific. For instance, if you're writing a big orchestral piece, you may want the score to be a different paper size or a different staff size to the parts, so this is where you handle that stuff. I'll go into more detail on layout options a little later in the course. Now, all of these dialogues have a Save as Default button in the bottom left corner, and also, once you've saved some defaults, this button appears, Reset to Saved Defaults. If you want to go back to factory settings, hold down the Option key on Mac, or actually the Control key on Windows, and you'll see these 2 buttons change. Clicking Reset to Factory doesn't delete your defaults from the program, it just removes them from this one project, or this one flow, or this one layout, depending on which dialogue you're in.